part of this mentality, how it evolves, is how we as leaders, and I am looking at this room because this represents leadership in this organization. How this evolves is how you empower your teams to think about transformation. How this evolves is how you start to look at the power and the value of your teams that serve this organization and what they can bring to the table. But not in the sense, I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. And I've heard him say during an interview, and actually probably a couple different interviews, a lot of times the bosses at an organization are the kinds of people that just see their employees as like a wet rag that they have to wring out every drop. And it's a great analogy, I think, because it's very visceral, right? As leadership over an organization, oftentimes we see our people, we see our teams as servants to the organization. We see them as, a wet cloth that we just have to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until we get every single drop out of them. Instead of, what's the alternative? Instead of empowering them. As you empower them, you start to realize I can't control them. Because if you're empowering them, you're saying, you bring value to this organization, and I want you to feel ownership of your decisions, of your projects, of your departments. I want you to feel ownership of your decisions that may turn out great or they may turn out horrible. The consequences of those types of decisions that ultimately will lead to whether this organization is going to be successful. So as leaders, I want you to start looking at the teams that are serving this organization as they're actually a value add. They're a value proposition to us. They're not servants, right? They're not tools to just be used and put back in the shelf when we don't need them. They bring substantive value to this organization, and we want to empower that. We don't want to, watch over them and kind of top down say, you're not making the right decision, or you have to do it this way, or history has shown this organization that it has to be done only one way. We have a policy book for that. We have a manual for that. What if you have one of the most brilliant minds to ever walk the planet in this organization? Maybe in this building, maybe at one of your other locations, maybe at the plant down the street, maybe at one of the distribution centers, maybe on one of your trucks. We don't know where that person is, but one thing that's interesting is, what if that person is truly one of the most brilliant people to ever walk the planet? What are the odds, right? We don't know, but let me ask you this. Are you empowering that person to be all that they can be for this organization? Are you freeing them up to bring the maximum amount of value that they can to this organization? Why? Not because you're extracting it and wringing it out of them, but because you're saying, hey, I value you and I see you have something of value that you bring to the table. You're a part of this conversation. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying I would love to know what you want to do. What do you think about this problem? How do you think we can solve this problem? And what you'll see, it happens. And there's obviously plenty of research on this, but also you do your own research. Come in tomorrow and try this. Try this with one, pick your whole team. Pick one person, your whole team, it doesn't matter. Say, I'm going to commit to empowering my people. Now, it's easier said than done because most of us in leadership, we're trained to manage people. We're trained, whether it's our experience or in-house training, wherever that comes from, we're trained to do it this way. So we actually are part of the problem, right? We're part of the problem that says, well, if I'm going to get value from them, I have to do it this way. How do I know that? Because that's what I've been taught. What we're trying to do is unlearn the bad habits and relearn the new, the good habits that lead to a transformed organization. Because when this organization can be transformed, we've talked, and we're going to continue to talk. Throughout our time today, we're going to talk about a lot of different pieces. Technology mechanisms to transform people, but we're going to talk about the customers and the consumers a little bit later. But for right now, we're focusing in on our teams and what we do as leaders to empower them, to make them believe that they have a stake in the outcome. That's not just pass or fail. good job, promotion, bad job, fired. That's not the stake in the game I'm talking about. That they could feel a sense of ownership. And a lot of people would call that like an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'll use that term as we talk more. I'll use that term a lot. I use that in my writing a lot because there's a mindset that comes with an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur will take ownership, or at least they should, right? They don't always, but an entrepreneur will take ownership of their decisions because they benefit from it. They also fall on the sword, or they fall by the wayside because of it. So they'll take ownership of those types of decisions. So that's the thing that I want you to start thinking about as we develop our time together and we start to look at transformation in the context of people. How are we empowering people to think differently? But also equal to that, how are we starting to think differently and how we empower people? Can we empower ourselves? That's part of the question.